Have you ever driven down a long, dark road and seen someone on the side, just standing there? I did. I saw him, and the scariest part wasn't the person I saw standing in the darkness. It was the one I didn't see coming. My name is Leo, and last October, I made a decision that I still think about every single time I get behind the wheel of a car after the sun goes down. My younger brother, Mark, was getting married. It was a huge deal for our family, and I was the best man. The problem was the wedding was a 12-hour drive away, and I couldn't get off work until 5 p.m. the day before. I did the math in my head. A flight was too expensive. A hotel room for just a few hours seemed like a waste. So I came up with a brilliant caffeine-fueled plan. I just power through the night, drive straight there. What's 12 hours, really? I filled the thermos with coffee that was probably strong enough to dissolve steel, downloaded about 15 hours of podcasts, and hit the road feeling pretty optimistic. The first few hours were a breeze. I was cruising, singing along to the radio, feeling that classic road trip freedom. The city lights faded into suburban glows, and then into the quiet, dark countryside. Around midnight, things started to change. The highway emptied out. The world outside my headlights just ceased to exist. It was like driving through a tunnel of pure black. The only sounds were the hum of my engine and the monotone voice of a history podcast host talking about ancient Rome. The coffee was wearing off, and that deep, heavy, late-night fatigue was starting to creep in. You know the feeling. Your eyelids feel like they weigh 100 pounds.
I was somewhere in the middle of nowhere. No towns, no exits, just mile after mile of asphalt cutting through dense, dark woods. That's when I saw him for the first time. It happened so fast. My headlights swept across the road, and there, on the gravel shoulder, was a figure. A man. He was tall, unnaturally thin, and he was standing perfectly still. He wasn't holding a sign. His thumb wasn't out. He was just standing there, facing away from the road, staring into the blackness of the trees. My heart jumped into my throat. Every horror movie instinct I had screamed at once. I checked my locks. They were already down, and gripped the steering wheel tighter. It was just so wrong, so out of place. Who stands in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m, staring into a forest? My first thought was a breakdown. His car must be just out of sight. But as I passed him, I scanned the shoulder ahead. Nothing. No car, no flashing lights, no sign of an accident. Just this lone, still figure. I watched him in my rearview mirror until my car's taillights swept past him and he was swallowed by the darkness again. The image was burned into my mind. The stillness of him. It was the most unsettling part. I tried to shake it off. "You're tired, Leo," I told myself. "Your mind is playing tricks on you." I turned up the podcast, trying to drown out the nervous thumping in my chest. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The rest of the world felt like it was asleep, but I felt more awake and more watched than ever before. 30 minutes crawled by. That's about 30 miles, I figured. The image of the man had started to fade, replaced by the steady drone of my tires on the pavement. I was starting to relax. I was just tired, that was all. It was nothing. And then I saw him again.
Up ahead, in the exact same spot on the shoulder of the road, the same tall, thin silhouette, the same unnerving stillness, standing, facing the woods. It was impossible, absolutely impossible. There's no way he could have gotten 30 miles down the road in 30 minutes on foot. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A brother? A twin? Some bizarre local prank? But my gut told me something else. A cold knot of panic tightened in my stomach. This wasn't a coincidence. I wasn't just tired anymore. I was scared. The lonely road didn't feel lonely now. It felt like I was being followed, hunted. I floored it. My speedometer creeped up to 80, then 85. The sensible part of my brain was screaming at me to slow down, but the terrified part just wanted to put as much distance as possible between me and whatever that was. 20 minutes later, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, I saw him a third time, identical, still, waiting. That was it. I was done. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel straight. Up ahead, like a mirage in the desert, I saw a single flickering sign. It was old, with a few letters burned out, but I could make out the words, "Rest stop, 24 hours." It looked old, dingy, probably hadn't been updated since the 70s, but right then, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. A sanctuary. I pulled off the highway, the gravel of the parking lot crunching loudly in the dead silence. The lot was empty, except for an old, rusty-looking tow truck parked way in the back, near the woods. I killed the engine and just sat there for a moment, my heart pounding against my ribs. The silence outside was almost as unnerving as the open road. I took a deep breath and forced myself out of the car. The air was cold and crisp. The rest stop building was small, a little box of fluorescent light in an ocean of darkness. I pushed the glass door open, a little bell chimed, and stepped inside. The air inside was stale, smelling of burnt coffee and disinfectant. Behind the counter stood an elderly man, maybe in his 70s. He had a kind, deeply wrinkled face and a warm, gentle smile. He looked up from the newspaper he was reading.
"Rough night on the road, son?" he asked. His voice was calm, grandfatherly. A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it almost made me dizzy. "You have no idea," I managed, letting out a weak, shaky laugh. The sheer normalcy of him, of this place, felt like a lifeline. I grabbed a bottle of water from a cooler, my hands still trembling slightly. As I walked back to the counter, I knew I had to say something. I couldn't be the only one who'd seen him. "Strangest thing," I started, trying to sound casual. "I keep seeing this person on the side of the road, a hitchhiker or something. Same guy, like 3 times. The man's smile didn't falter. He nodded slowly. "Ah, yes," he said, folding his newspaper neatly. "The long stretch gets lonely, especially at this hour. The mind plays tricks on you out there in the dark. You see all sorts of things that aren't really there." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's the quiet that gets you." We talked for a few more minutes. He told me he'd been running this rest stop for 40 years. He'd seen it all, he said. Tired truckers, families on vacation, college kids on road trips. He was so calm, so reassuring that my fear began to melt away. He was right. I was just exhausted. My mind was creating monsters in the dark. I felt my shoulders, which had been up by my ears, finally relax. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been on a road trip late at night and seen something you just couldn't explain? Something that made the hair on your arms stand up? Tell me your story in the comments. Seriously, after what happened next, I need to know I'm not the only one. I paid for my water, thanked the old man for the chat, and headed for the door, feeling 1,000,000 times better.
I was just tired, that was all. As I was opening my car door, he called out from the doorway of the shop, "Hey, son, be careful out there." I turned and gave him a wave. "Will do. Your rear tire is looking a little low. Don't want you getting stranded." I froze. My hand was on the door handle. I looked from him to my car and back. It was pitch black. The only light was from the sign and the doorway, neither of which lit the far side of my car. "My tire?" I asked, confused. "How can you tell?" His kind smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes anymore. There was a glint in them now. "I've got a good eye for these things," he said softly. "Been doing this a long time. I notice details." He took a step out of the doorway. "Like that little air freshener you have hanging from your mirror. Pine tree, right? I can smell it from here." A wave of ice-cold dread washed over me. It felt so cold it felt hot, prickling my skin. He couldn't have seen my tire. It was impossible. And he definitely couldn't have smelled my tiny, week-old pine tree air freshener from 50 feet away, over the smell of gasoline and his own stale coffee. He couldn't know those things, unless he had already been much, much closer to my car. I didn't say anything. I didn't even breathe. I just got in the car, slammed the door, and fumbled with my keys, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I jammed the key in the ignition, turned it, and threw it in reverse. I didn't look back at him. I couldn't. I just sped out of that gravel lot, tires spitting rocks, and merged back onto the empty, dark highway. For the first minute, I just drove, staring straight ahead. Then, my eyes flickered to the rearview mirror. I had to look. I had to know. The rest stop was shrinking in the distance, and standing under its flickering, dying sign, I saw two figures, the kind old man from the counter, and standing right next to him, a tall, thin silhouette, perfectly still, watching me go. And in that horrifying, crystal-clear moment, I finally understood. The hitchhiker on the side of the road wasn't the threat. He wasn't the monster. He was the bait.